Hello, my name's Andrew Masters, and I am the Executive Director of the Columbia Housing Center. I'm also a member of the Howard County Housing Affordability Coalition. In Howard County, our housing market is working for some, but failing to meet the needs of many. This video will explain the crisis and describe the once-in-a-decade opportunity that we have to do something about it. Who's getting left behind by our housing market? Seniors trying to downsize or afford rent on their fixed incomes, young adults trying to launch but still stuck in mom and dad's house, young families who can't afford a starter home, people with disabilities who can't find affordable, accessible housing, essential members of our workforce in the medical, hospitality, service, and other industries, and public sector workers, including firefighters, teachers, and many others. Here in Howard County, we're adding jobs at the second fastest pace in Maryland, and many are higher paying jobs. But we're not building enough homes. This chart compares Howard to neighboring counties in terms of the ratio between jobs and homes. We're far behind our neighbors. The analysis shows we have a shortage of at least 20,000 homes. Because home prices follow the law of supply and demand, prices keep going up to a median of $570,000. And most new single-family homes are high-end. To afford one, you need income over $145,000. Not a big problem for most affluent households, but families of moderate or lower income are completely priced out. That's a clear signal that our county's housing policies are not equitable for all. Many people who already live here, including renters, are getting squeezed. A normal vacancy rate for apartment communities is about 5%, but because Howard County doesn't have enough homes to rent, our vacancy rate is 1.5%, which gives landlords the leverage they need to keep raising rents to nearly $1,500 per month for a one-bedroom, all the way up to $2,200 for a three-bedroom. Researchers say the shortage of affordable rentals for lower incomes households is over 7,500 homes, and for lower seniors, over 3,700 homes. Again, clear signals that our housing policies aren't working for all. Those rising rents created by a scarcity of homes are impacting thousands of our neighbors. Howard has about 32,000 renter households. That's 1 in 4 of all county households, or about 73,000 people. These are young people, seniors on fixed incomes, and also essential workers in numerous industries, including our public sector. They're more likely to be people of color. About 18,000 of the renter households spend 30,000 or less of gross income to pay their rent. 30% of income is considered by economists to be an affordable housing expense because that amount usually leaves enough money for other essentials like food, transportation, childcare, and savings. 6,500 households pay between 31 and 50% of their income on housing, leaving them with less capacity for other essentials. And another 6,800 households are getting squeezed with rents that consume more than half of every dollar. In these families, food insecurity is common. Financial emergencies can cause them to experience homelessness, and they're usually unable to save for a home purchase that would allow them to build wealth. In total, over 12,000 Howard County households pay unaffordable rents, a powerful signal yet again that we need more equitable housing policies. We have to solve the inequities in our housing system, and fortunately, we have an opportunity. As required by law, work has started on a major update to our county's general plan. This plan will shape growth and housing decisions over the next 20 years. The plan is called HoCo by Design. The plan proposes policies to correct our community's stark inequities in housing affordability, accessibility, and homeownership. The draft plan will reach the County Council in early 2023, but the plan won't pass the Council without widespread support. We'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. We'd like to welcome community planners from the Howard County Department of Planning and Zoning, who will talk more about HoCo by Design, and then we'll return to talk about the Howard County Housing Affordability Coalition. So Victoria, take it away.
And I will just go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Olivier from the Howard County Department of Planning and Zoning, and we are so grateful that you're taking the time today to learn a little bit about HoCo by Design. In case you don't know about the planning department, our role is to help shape and manage future growth, development, land, and historic preservation throughout the county. And so we work at kind of a long range, which is a big scale. Community planning, you could think of as more of a smaller scale, which would be sub areas in the county. But we really look at engagement as an important part of this process for either the large scale or the community level planning to really understand what the vision is for residents of Howard County over time. How do you want communities to grow or change? Another aspect of the planning department is that we ensure that all property owners use or build on their land in a way that complies with our laws and regulations. So today we're here specifically to talk to you about HoCo by Design, which is one of those long-range planning efforts. So what is HoCo by Design? What is a general plan? It's a long-range plan looking over 20 years of growth, development, land use, preservation. It sets the vision for things like how do we use our land? Where and how do we develop and grow? How do we protect our environment? It's also required by the state of Maryland that we update this every 10 years, and we've been doing so since 1960. And again, we use community engagement and input to inform this process. So a way to think about the general plan is kind of a playbook for the county, working with the full range of departments, working with our elected officials. And the idea is that it gives direction to these agencies about a variety of topics, like what kind of housing should be built and where. How do we improve or enhance our transportation system, not just our buses, but also for pedestrians, bicyclists? How do we protect our environmental, historic, and agricultural resources? Where do we locate jobs? What kind of jobs? What do we want our neighborhoods to look like? And what kind of amenities do we want them to have? The general plan is pretty important. It influences several things like capital projects, which is really the money that funds those amenities that we all use, like sidewalks, community centers, school buildings. Also, other community plans, again, more at the small scale level, like Ellicott City Watershed Master Plan, or the county has a bike and pedestrian master plan. And then our next big endeavor as a planning department, as a community, is to rethink our zoning regulations. And to just explain zoning a little bit more, these are regulations that define what can and cannot be built, where it can be built, and how it can be built. So the following slide looks at what we've done so far with community engagement. There have been a lot of meetings which have looked different during COVID. And of course, now there are more in-person opportunities. We have also done surveys and worked to inform people through our HoCo by Design email list. But what we know is that our engagement does not always mirror the diversity of our county. And so that's why we're here today, is because we're continuing to get the word out to a wider variety of people and hopefully hear more back through the rest of this process. So this slide looks at the difference between 2010 and 2021. And we know that collectively, the non-white population is now greater than 50%, the total population in the county. For me, really eye-opening statistic was here on the right, that 28.6% of Howard County families speak another language at home besides English. So we also try and be mindful of that as we're doing our engagement. But we're really here today to continue engaging these diverse voices, which are represented here. And another key part of this plan is equity. And frankly, it's new to our plan this year as we update. So As we go through the plan, there are many policies and recommendations that are intended to advance equity in the county, especially through land use and growth. So we know it's important to define equity. So as a department, this plan currently has the current definition of building a future ripe with opportunities for all people, all communities, including access to attainable housing, amenity-rich neighborhoods, high-quality education, and economically uplifting employment. So we're here today to just get you up to speed on where we are in the Howard County HoCo by design planning process, share some of the key recommendations, especially around equity, and also help you learn how to stay involved because this voice, we're not to the finish line yet, your voice still matters throughout the entire process. So we're going to focus in on, as we're here today with the Housing Affordability Coalition, on the dynamic neighborhoods chapter. So really looking at this issue of housing affordability, rising home prices, and rents that Andy talked about in the introduction. So looking at, what kind of housing, what about housing for older adult populations, those with disabilities, the unhoused, and thinking about how we encourage homes be built so they're affordable to all income levels. So we're going to start off with a little bit of trivia. So if you're there thinking, come up with your own answer here. These are, looking at what percentage of homes for sale are affordable to households that make less than $73,000 a year. And the answer would be 9%. So very, very few. If we're to bump that up to $145,000 a year, a very strong income, you might be surprised to know that still only 25% of those homes that are for sale in Howard County are affordable. So a few more statistics for you. The newly built rental housing is pretty expensive. It's really only affordable to those households that are making $95,000 a year. And the other stat that stood out to me was the 17% of new single-family homes built today are under 3,000 square feet. So this is a larger home. This does not provide a lot of options to those who are looking for smaller homes, and those would generally be, more expensive. So we're also thinking a bit about the jobs and housing balance. Right now we already have an undersupply of 20,000 housing units. And we know that when you think about the laws of supply and demand, when you have a higher demand, this cost burden is going to disproportionately impact our lower and moderate income households. We also wanted to bring up a few other challenges that play into this. So there is limited land remaining. We as a county have protected a lot of our land. And what you'll see in green is, the parks and the easements. That is protected land. It's about 39%. And the undeveloped land that we see there in orange, it's very limited, is about 2%. And this isn't, easy to develop land. There's likely some environmental challenges or other factors as to why it's undeveloped. So now we're thinking, how do we move forward with growth given some of these constraints? And as we think about our housing, we also want to put it in the context of the current zoning. As a reminder, this idea of what can be built and where it can be built. And what we see here is that single family detached dwellings, so like your single family home, can be built across the county for the most part. I did want to point out this sort of gray color, and that is the Newtown zoning, which is unique to Columbia. And it's a little more complicated than what we could represent on this map. But as you know, Columbia does have a mix of housing types. Then we look at townhomes and duplexes, and that you can see represented in the orange is much more limited than the prior slide. And once we get to multifamily or mixed use, which is just 3 units or more, it is even more limited. So we're starting to think, we know we need more housing types, more than the common single family home. or many of our townhomes are very expensive. What are some policies we can think of that can encourage or allow more of these housing types? So we wanted to introduce to you the concept of missing middle housing. It's kind of a new name, a branded concept, but it's really an older housing type, and some that you'll see are already built in Howard County. And so this kind of shows a spectrum from the idea of a duplex all the way up to smaller scale apartment buildings where you would have live work, but there's a lot in between here. And we wanted to think about how can we encourage more of these diverse housing types because they're generally more affordable due to being smaller. So we wanted to show you some pictures of what they look like with this idea that many are already integrated into our neighborhoods. So we range from a duplex, a triplex, a cottage court where you have small houses oriented around common green space, a sixplex, live work area that we have in the far right lower corner, actually stacked townhomes, which these are in Paddock Point. And then we wanted to also show you accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. So the idea is that these could be on single family home lots. They are currently allowed when they are attached to a house. So if that was an apartment in somebody's basement or attic, but with the detached, it's far more difficult to achieve that in Howard County today, but that could open up some possibilities where a current garage or ancillary dwelling could be transformed into a place for the youth that maybe you want to live nearby, but not in your house, or maybe an elder family member, maybe a small family unit. So it's integrated into our existing neighborhoods, and it could also help build some income for a homeowner who may need help with the mortgage. So to summarize this section, we are again looking at increasing opportunities for missing middle housing and ADUs through future zoning changes. So we've talked about the what and wanted to talk a little bit about the where. So with limited green fields, or this 2% of land left to develop on, we're really starting to think about how do we redevelop? And when we have the opportunity to redevelop, how do we think about a new space that offers an opportunity to integrate some of these concepts of being greener, more open space, better stormwater management? How do we start to mix the uses that people can take advantage of, whether that's recreation or job opportunities, and then think about connectivity to current, amenities and other neighborhoods in our county, and make sure that there's an array of diverse housing types. Again, this spectrum of missing middle. And so we've started to kind of turn these activity centers. I know that might sound more like it's a recreation center, or it could be an amusement park, but this concept of, we're rethinking our spaces as there's opportunities, whether that's aging multifamily housing that could be redeveloped differently. There's shopping centers or business parks that are highly underutilized and looking at their kind of next life. Excuse me. So I wanted to show you some examples of activity centers that are already kind of present in Howard County. So they range in scale and location. We can think about a Wild Lake Village Center, but then also a pretty massive multi-phase development like downtown Columbia. And so, not all of these would happen overnight. It would be redevelopment, it could be incremental, but the idea that it's starting to integrate all of these aspects that could make for, broaden opportunity, healthier lifestyles, and have more missing middle homes like duplexes, triplexes, or attached EDUs. And then Our existing neighborhoods do offer some level of opportunity. If we think about infill housing, duplexes can often look like they just fit in a neighborhood already, but then offer more opportunity for people to live there. And then also the rural west, which is the kind of area outside of what we call the public service area. That is where things that our built environment is based off of public water and sewer, which is a little more limiting for density, but still this idea of duplexes, cottage clusters, maybe some live, work, upper story residential when we have small commercial areas. And I think this is an important opportunity because we do have greater school capacity in the West, and there are currently fewer moderately priced homes. And so while we might be a little more limited, it would be taking a step in that direction. So to just do a quick overview of the policies that I've discussed, we would be looking at supporting the redevelopment of older shopping centers, office buildings, business parks, for varied income levels. Also thinking about how we can include accessible, affordable, transit-connected housing in future activity centers, and encourage greater diversity of housing types, both in existing neighborhoods and the rural West, while still having an emphasis on maintaining community character. So I left this slide in. This is something that we asked our kind of live audience, what excites you? Do you think this could further equity in the county and why? And we would love to hear these responses. So if you have some, you can always feel free to get in contact with us, or we'll talk about a few more of the equity and action policies that are also in the other chapters. So Dynamic Neighborhoods has other components that I didn't get a chance to talk about today. We want to make sure that we also address our homeless and lower income populations, those with disabilities, and also older adults. Thinking through a current program we have, which is called the Moderate Housing Income Unit Program, and how do we think about this offering more opportunities for the county. Then ecological health, really taking an emphasis on future impacts of climate change. How do we help those who might be less financially able to put some of this mitigation in place themselves? Thinking about, whether that's tree plantings to address heat island impacts. And then as we think about design and redevelopment, we want to make sure that we seize this opportunity to ensure there's universal access, that we make welcoming spaces, that we also think about how, as a community, we not only document our historic resources so they tell a better story of our diverse heritage and past, but also work with partners for education opportunities and really broaden this idea of a shared story in Howard County. And then for economic prosperity, we're thinking about employment and job growth in our county. We want to promote job retention and growth, and thinking about those industrial, manufacturing, distribution sectors, which often provide jobs with low barriers of entry. They don't necessarily require a college degree. We want to make sure we can house those who are working in Howard County, but also want to live in the county. That could be our teachers, that could be those who are working in our hospitals, our service industry. We want to make sure that we increase job training, internships, job placements, ensure that our residents have the resources they need to really climb the ladder and be more financially stable. And then continue to support our local and small businesses. We've heard that a lot of people want to start their own businesses here, but the available space is a little out of reach. And so then County in Motion, we know that housing and transportation are really inextricably combined. And so as we think about our future for transportation, we know that we need to improve our air quality, especially with an emphasis on communities that are more threatened by higher levels of pollution. Also, we can think about how do we advance low emission vehicles or bicycles and scooters to traditionally underserved communities. Also thinking about solving that kind of transportation gap between where homes are located and maybe where mass transportation could pick up. And enhancing that public transportation system, thinking about frequency, thinking about the connections and what it takes to get them to regional job centers. And so I will just wrap there with this quick overview, but I want to let you know there are lots of ways to learn more. A really easy one would be to register on our HoCo by Design website. That will keep you up to date on all new opportunities. Also, we have all of our past, past meetings, we have past materials, we have educational materials. It really is an in-depth website. And we really hope that now that you know a little something about HoCo by Design, you can help inform your friends, because it is really a pivotal time right now. As of this presentation on December 16th, we have 1 month left to comment on the draft plan. And so that is a pretty simple comment form to turn in, and we will be reading and recording all of those. And we also wanted to let you know that we've planned an equity open house, which is scheduled for January 10th at the Harriet Tubman Cultural Center. So we will be promoting that opportunity through the Housing Affordability Coalition, and we really hope to see you all there. And, the big one is for this plan to be implemented, we also need to make sure that it's first adopted by our county council. And so we will have those meetings coming up in 2023. And for those dates, the best thing to do is to get registered with HoCo by Design. And also, I'm sure the HAC will be sending those out to help us. And I also wanted to highlight an opportunity that's coming up. If you really liked thinking about planning today and how it impacts the future and current conditions, I would encourage you to apply to be part of the Howard Planning Academy. This is something that we have run for a few years pre-COVID, but we wanted to make sure we had another session of it at this important time as we're thinking about HoCo by Design. So it's a chance, it's about 10 hours of time commitment, but it does really get into all the aspects of what the planning department does. So thinking about zoning and planning review and even planning law. So this is a free opportunity, and we will have the application up on our website within a few weeks. So I just wanted to wrap there and thank you all for the opportunity, and I will turn it back over to Andy.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you for all that information and for the work that you've been doing to support HoCo by Design. So I'm going to wrap with just a few slides about the Howard County Housing Affordability Coalition. So the coalition formed several years ago and is currently turning its attention to supporting HoCo by Design. Our current housing policies limit the housing supply far below what's needed to support all the jobs our community is creating. Because the supply doesn't meet demand, home prices and rents have increased to unaffordable levels. That's not a problem for wealthy households, they're doing just fine. But people with moderate and lower incomes are suffering. We need to fix this inequity. So we ask you to join our coalition's campaign for equitable housing in Howard County. Whether you represent an organization or want to join the coalition as an individual, you're welcome. We'll connect you with more education and give you the opportunities that you can benefit to add your voice. You can make a difference in HoCo by Design. You can make a difference in Howard County. To join the coalition, send an email to admin@hocohac.org. That's hocohac.org. Membership is free. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.